Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Kande Allah ye gwe ye do kane Raba sho sa pon de chon ze on ze che ye ya bo gwe ye lo san cha se da je ba ne de che so so de ye non ga se de be on de che ze lo ma ye be an zo ga che ta lo de be se na che an jo de ba ye che ke ja sho so so che je che ge ja ve lo che do ye sa no be ye yo le che so cha be be ye lo me ze be to de te be Go Let me remind every one of us to cultivate bodhicitta motivation, and with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this teaching on stages of the path leading to enlightenment. I'm going to read about a page or two from the text, volume number 2 in English translation of Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the stages of path enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa, to give you the blessing of oral transmission, and then I'll give explanation.
Deji Savon, Son Deji, Yuge, Lava, Trodo, Semalaso, Savon, Son. Sono Tadaki, Yugi, Shivi, Tadani, Yutumo, Neji Savoni, Kin, Sudan, Sojan, Jela, so we Yugu, Jurmiru. Ne Yugutumo, my Bagati, Simbi, Chulu, Lazo, Ne Yugu, Jurjo, Tija, Laname, Changi, Simni, Sanji, Yugu, Ju, no, Savon, the Tumo, Inla. 东西到比现在呢，修理了是我等着我上去是就送给有土木因为地就是有那么来讲，提着了么现在提着了么什么现在呢，上去去年嘛到现中先上去生呢，配什么东西，咱们到比现在。马德送的别能怕那不了你不家头好了说不，见没事别这怕一不人也别见了，马不了别你不那说吧这土木个就是叫我闲喏，我们这这要上街上是见到当年的那么些也点别。他别了那经济现在没这叫也是实现了的，你让那么就得了，得了，得你现在。写起了农写上送别，提拔起就你个设计用一百多年到别下来提拔起用这把每一场就是他妈这把那把写完那，这把应该这些这么来年的提拔的那场就是别这把人，这把让我嘛这把让我嘛写的像是把可能就是写，大约嘛这就这个小松树，他对不对？群众的是点看起他，特别基本上呢，就是我写的，他当不就可是啥，特别如果说升级看他不写的，人可是朋友写的，朋友写人咱们得来什么可是朋友可以写在是吧？他这里嘛朋友的写完的，那人都是有些比可是来说，也得大的学在的是吧？我这，人都是有了可
能。So Geshe read from page 17 top to the beginning of page 19. So how we already talked about some of the benefits of cultivating bodhicitta or the spirit of enlightenment or mind of enlightenment, and we're continuing with the discussion.
我这他其实写的人人都去按个语来写的了，写我这可都是有。都这可是，这类的话，我写当时人人就按个语来讲，像是什么，全部送啊，全部英国的现在加起完的，现在啥完的，顶把搞完的。上面就是写上，甚至历史上了是，电脑上问题的，人那是这个现在讲不写的，电脑我没懂啊，没对那你甚至你得不到了写不下，人那是没不起，前面看他上就是马古嘛学不他给，他给上去什么做不就提，上去什么做不就提这，前面上去什么，这把三个就过去呗，上去什么，他。一些全部按个为送啊，因我的修晒，看他小学是没做，他呢修我没啥的，他你经过，个大也没修过，看见第二他的第二的话，可是小学是嘛呢，因为三个个需要嘛的是，经过大洋中国嘛的是，因为他小学是没呢，因为提高啥个需要嘛的，他看个需要的小学是看见学嘛的，他过了吧，现在的经过学不搞的这个是呢，因为。小学生们的就读到那个学校要嘛，经过大外中国嘛的是，现在提前的学不来，就比我学的小学生苦苦的，是我天天谈谈去。
So in the middle of page 17, we have a passage quoted from the Tantra bestowing the initiation of Vajrapani, and so explanation given on what's stated in that is Vajrapani is telling Manjushri that in order to enter tantric path and practice, it is essential to cultivate bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment, without which one cannot really follow tantric path and practice, and one cannot be allowed to enter into mandala, celestial mention of the deities. I forgot about even entering into the mandala. One is not even allowed to view secret mandalas of deities. So the point that's being made here is, as we recall, that bodhicitta is the door to enter into Mahayana path and practice, and it's the door to enter into not only the sutra aspect of the Mahayana path, but it's also required for practicing tantra.
Karsa tena tikwa shimbu shu karsa tena shu tikwa shimbu mecho ge kansa tikwa shimbu shu ba shu Geshe tijen ba sheba la shangju sen la ra lebe na sim de ko zang de me na tikwa shimbu de dan jala sim de chen sang hi ne tibu jen ba number ta ba hi number ta ba hi ngo ye se de la be ba sha wo se she da dire zong da kara 그게 냠상이 최고는 되고시면 편도 말해서 강사고는 뒤진게 그게 생이 창고 그래서 뒤쪽에 가지고 그래서는 이 정주쌤도 그거라 저 가도 좀 시나 다 정주쌤도 가도 그게 이 기부 숭등이 그게 남지 마장 시 가도 인제다 정주쌤 제야 말아 그래서 뒤쪽에 얘는 티바쇼 약고 신데나 얘는 기부 숭등이 남지야 제로 약고 저서 되네 현달 민인제게 in the Translation English Shambi, Shanshu Sim, yes, that in the teacher Muni translated is what
No, in the commentary that follows that passage quoted from Tantra bestowing the initiation Vajrapani, it is stated that it's not enough for teaching to be that of a Mahayana teaching. But one must be able to become a Mahayanist, or what we call a person of a Mahayana vehicle. And how can one be a Mahayanist is if we cultivate bodhicitta in our mind stream. So that qualifies us to be a Mahayanist. So in order to cultivate bodhicitta, really the proper way to do that is there is no kind of a shortcut way, just jump right into the Mahayana path and cultivate it. The proper way is to train our mind in the paths common with initial and intermediate level practitioners, right? And through that we develop or activate our compassion for others, and then we try to expand that compassion to make it a great compassion or Mahakaruna. And it is from Mahakaruna or great compassion that we can experience bodhicitta. So Mahakaruna is, cause giving rise to bodhicitta. So it is in that systematic way we should train our mind if we really want to have a bodhicitta or spirit of enlightenment. And that is a qualification, right? If it says, what are the qualifications to be a Mahayanist or a person of a greater vehicle, right? There could be many qualities, but the one that must be there is the bodhicitta, right? If you have bodhicitta, you are Mahayanist. If you don't have bodhicitta, you are not Mahayanist, even if you are engaging in Mahayana practice or you are listening to Mahayana teaching.
That doesn't really master of Tamina Shin, that thing or did thing out in this is with their Karsa. When the Tanga of Tina, Jadi Java share. In the Karsa Tambo take Java, Tinis Jadi share, Tinis song dancer, told the Matanza Jivishable Lever. The Shenta take Jaya Jivishum share. That Jadi of Jadella Dengus share. In the Gagasi don't design to do any big Saguka in the Shant over. Take the Jadizan mother like Kadusha Marva. What did not he say?
Although the sort of ultimate purpose of this Lamrim text or the great treatise on the stage of the path is to lead us on the path towards enlightenment or Buddhahood, but it does it in a very systematic way by introducing us to path and practice of beginners or initial level practitioners, and then to the path and practice of intermediate level practitioners, and then to the path and practice of advanced level practitioners. Okay? And so in a sense that those other practices lay out the foundation and also kind of how should I say, stabilize our practices and further development of Mahayana path. And one of the examples given is that of an artist who would like to do mandala of deities or a deity. That he or she has to prepare the canvas first, right? And once you have really prepared well the canvas, and then you will start off with some sketches, right? So that's almost like laying the foundation for your art, and this is like something similar to initial level practice. And then once you have really the sketch well, then you are going to clarify that sketches and highlight it and make it more prominent. And that's also similar to the intermediate level practice. And then once all the deities are drawn nicely, now you're going to color every thing accordingly, and then you have the complete mandala. So that is like advanced level practice. So just like an artist have to follow that process, to create a mandala or to draw deities, in the same way, we the practitioners also need to follow a systematic way to be able to follow the path and practice leading to enlightenment.
Gyel dombo ko wali rigi bu shangshi sem ne sang yi xie tan yu sabon da bu xie sem be xie song ba le nge ba ni ge bi de xie ba chao de la xue de lue de zhe le sa ba是ne de yi sabon dang chong ne de yu jie ba jie了jie ba xie yu xie了 초도 세말로 사베 사본데 저는 네다 기시베 대단한 투모에는 네기 사본이 깨서도 초장 네 내일 사바 유구 유메롱에서 네기 유구 투모만이 유인라 디세베 출루라 사바야 네기 유구 유르조 티긴들라네 상주세네 상이 유구 유구난에서 사본다부 투모만이 유인라 동이도베 헤랍네 출루로서거든요. 정주심기 두모와이 노시 제대로 티바시모를 정주심 계셔야 돼 그래서는 아니 정주심이 아니 사본다들이스 다 동이도 헤라다 되는 저바 헤다가 랍자다 시루냐는도 가가 출루다 버렸어. 출루도 다 내가 사본 냠도 호텔도 대기하고 그 사마도 저 가르치기로 어떻게 되겠어. 다 내가 사본 뒤거라 출루서도 되다 내가 지금 마다 사마도 저들이 말아. 제가 이 티바시부 두모 모임이 교도 다 대샤워 가정주심데.
No, sure. So at the bottom of page 17, we have a quote from Gandhavayu Sutra or Array of Stock Sutra, and I quote, "O child of good lineage, the spirit of enlightenment is like the seed of all the Buddha qualities," unquote. Yeah. So the spirit of enlightenment is no other than bodhicitta, or in Tibetan called Changju Sem. And if we have activated bodhicitta and have it, then we have the seed of enlightenment. And so this is what we call uncommon cause of enlightenment. An example given to illustrate this point is when farmers grow different types of crops, right? They would like to grow rice or wheat or barley or whatever they want to grow. What they need are a couple of things. They need fertile soil or the land, and then they need to use fertilizers or the manure, and then they also need sunlight and the heat. But these are common conditions or causes to grow any kind of crops. But if you want a barley, then you must sow barley seeds, because barley seeds will only bring barley but never grow rice or wheat or some other crops. So barley seeds are the uncommon cause to have barley crops. So in the same way, bodhicitta is the uncommon cause of enlightenment, whereas wisdom realizing emptiness, shunyata, is one of the common causes, if you will. When we look at the 6 perfections, those perfections are also kind of a common causes in some sense. Okay? And so if we want to achieve enlightenment, we must cultivate the uncommon seed or the cause, which is bodhicitta, and then we can integrate with it wisdom, realizing emptiness, or engage in other practice of perfections.
어디에다 그래서 돈이도 베시라니 슈루라서 원래서 정주 숨게 두모 이노스다디 리기티리 그래서 태교로 그냥 정주 면지지는 팀에 돈이도 말이야 다음에 두모 뭐 맞도시 돈이도 티제 두모 샤디 두모 뭐 샤디 샤버리 다 태교로시나 티제 팀에서 해야 돼 그가르는 제베건 시르마도지 셰르건 시르마리스 이제 말이야 어디다 다들 태교 시작으로 시는 어디시와다 Tiza Yulamale, Tijo Lam, Sabon, Tijo Lam, Sabon, Hera, Nisan Chijimana, she, Shanjusin, Pai Sabon, the middle Hera, Matabu Song Days, or Dire. Tijo Lam, Musin, Shanjusin, Tijo Musin, Sinjatan, don't answer to shows at the Musa, Dera, Shanjusin, that Tijo Lam, Sabon, Tiaja, that Hera Nesidan, don't you do Hera? No. He doesn't carry the jig at Kanda, Kaval test on the tea game or did it say?
No, sir. So, of course, what is stated here is from Prasangika Madhyamikan point of view, or Tenjurwa in Tibetan. So, according to Prasangika Madhyamikans, it is a must for one to develop bodhicitta as the uncommon cause for achieving enlightenment, whereas the wisdom realizing emptiness is one of the common causes, because the wisdom realizing emptiness can give rise to realizations of other vehicles, such as Shirvakas or the hearers, and Pratyeka Buddhas or the solitary realizers. And so, according to Prasangika point of view, that if we are to differentiate between what we call Hinayana, now today called Theravadan, and Mahayana Buddhism, we cannot differentiate between the two vehicles in terms of the view of emptiness or the philosophy in that sense. But we differentiate in terms of what we call altruistic, in terms of what we call attitudes. And altruism is an attitude, right? So this is how we differentiate between the two vehicles in terms of the attitude, not in terms of philosophical view or the view of emptiness.
So the debate of this the party at Jamin, Mad Karina, Jiga Karina, Kesan Yamas, they put it in the Jamiran Chegris. So the Mad Jamin put it in the Jamin Yavan Park Sandro. But take it at the bed of the shadow. No, sure. Shetan Jala, that did not tell any don't you do share at the Tumu in the Gyeltsen inside. In Gobo Ludo get Terredo, Hersa. This Mela Dala, Simji thing you'll take by the number that you show. Timber, the voice you Hersa. Gobo Ludo, Gobo Ludo, Sanji, Ranza Yen, then in the yet and be. 타벨라니 징이 그 현在미지샤 니스 디즈다 돈이도 해라 디티바 순가 주인서 다 건지 이거를 소야야 돼. 다 현주선데 다 주제를 다 돈이도 해라 돼. 투모와리 이 현주선 투모 많이 세워로 디기다 돈이도 해라 돼. 투모와 이 주제는도 어디 자히 롱들 한도 어디 데티타고 제가 티바 수토에 니 돈이도 해라 돼. 고 디멘도가 요 말스 디 정다 뒤에 세워로 어디에 다 투모에 버두고로 어디 현주선 투모에 버스 디다 주제를 뒤에
So on page 18, we have a quote from Uttara Tantra, or Sublime Continuum of Maitreya, and I quote, "Aspiration to the Supreme Vehicle is the seed. Wisdom is the mother for generating the Buddha qualities." The aspiration here refers to altruistic aspiration seeking enlightenment. So that is the seed of enlightenment, uncommon cause. Whereas the wisdom realizing emptiness is just like a mother, and it is one of the common causes. And so then they give example of how if father is from a particular race or ethnicity, such as Tibetan, Chinese, Vietnamese, European, whatever. So they are only going to produce Tibetan, Vietnamese, European, any other those children. But the mother can be anybody, right? A Tibetan mother with a different fathers can produce different children. So just like that, wisdom is like a mother. It can produce any different kind of children, whereas bodhicitta is like a father. It can only produce a particular kind of a child. So then we have a quote from Arya Nagarjuna's praise of the perfection of wisdom, which basically states, I quote, "The path of liberation upon which the Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Shravakas definitely rely on is just this. It is certain that there are no others," unquote. So meaning, just this meaning that whether we seek complete enlightenment as our goal, or whether we seek the liberation of solitary realizers or Pratyeka Buddhas, or whether we seek the liberation of Shravakas or the hearers, we must cultivate the wisdom realizing selflessness, without which we cannot achieve any of those goals. So therefore, the wisdom realizing selflessness is a common path or a cause, right? Whereas the bodhicitta is exclusive cause leading to complete enlightenment.
어디 다시 다 티바시 중 제제도 가르쳐 제베곤지 제바시디 잔다 조조세 탑이 소로 와시다 디나 조디다 지단 지바도 다 시진 강가 대진 저거 이리티 지나 조디 샤주스면 봐 지다 조디 샤주스면 인자오데 다다 무슨 해도 어디 제베곤지와 송샤스 이제 정말이니 그게 니도 티바트살이야 시진 냠스레바 요레티 얘나 샤주스면 저발라 샤줘야다 디네다베 केबा ठामे समझया एने दुइलो लुंजो गाजी बसोया दे दिरे यो मारिस शेदा ति बेदे ने 티진 티바 쳔버 티요레스 지인가 다 제베 건체세야 되더라 어디래 다 수 정주심시 다 정주심디 때문에나 이네 릴롱지 지바다야 가르스 제베 건 가르시 강가 될 때니 근데 정주심디 연대 되버시기도 왔다 건지 제 연대 시다 강가 시다 jam가 꾸꾸만도 되 무자자시 대용스기도 와 되래.
So at the bottom of page 18, we have a stanza from Arya Nagarjuna's Precious Garland or Ratna Avali, Rinchen Tengwa in Tibetan, and which states, since the aspirational prayers, deeds, and complete dedications of the Bodhisattvas are not explained in the Shrivaka vehicle, how then could you become a Bodhisattva through it, unquote. So basically, as we stated earlier, if we are going to differentiate between Mahayana vehicle and Theravadan vehicles, we cannot do that in terms of the view of selflessness or what we call in terms of the wisdom per se, but we do that in terms of the skillful means or the method, upaya, and of many skillful means, the one that is perhaps the central core is bodhicitta developing. So in terms of bodhicitta, we can differentiate between Mahayanis and those who are not Mahayanis. And so in Bodhisattva literature, what we find is once we have really trained our mind in bodhicitta and have it and really make it very firm, then it is even possible for us to be able to sacrifice everything we have, including our life, for the benefit of others. Whereas in the Shrivaka literatures, there is no such explanation, right, of, sacrificing your life or giving everything for the sake of others, because they are not capable of doing that and they are not, in some sense, required to do that. So Shrivaka practitioners could also do perfection practices, but they are not required to, and they don't cultivate a bodhicitta attitude, if you will, as a skillful means.
제베 쳐 송소세 대다 돈이 더 베케르죠 티바시부 람투무 많이 버민주는 대다디 셰베 람은 따머지 지고 티지 저주 심 담베 티디 소니 제바 커사 담베 티디 소니 조아 메진 중국의 책정식 전부 시행이 람지 차기 참을 내된 뒤에 매번 추주 신의 중앙세로스这第四个的但他给你写的咱他比做的小学生学做东西都写了这个了是他东西都写了的你让他们写了的话送的话就是他没到的写了是他们他们写的给他们不写下来是的确都没写的这个他们那的是这他小学他们没有的开始过是呢因小学是被他们提的送的因这里要比这都老要过的是这嘛的因小学生的比람小学生家给当马上不是他考试个我是读说的不是当查的不对呀你的是拉的呢因这咱被看见他出去看的熊啊塞罗是的他这是我的同乡不两把这是我的我听有的他小学生这的东西的是这嘛都同乡不两这是我的
So on top of page 19 where we are now, so it is stated that in terms of method, skillful means upaya, thav, there are many. Perhaps the most important method practice is cultivating a bodhicitta. Okay? And in terms of wisdom practice, there are many types of wisdom. The most important wisdom is the wisdom gone beyond, or the wisdom understanding emptiness. And so as we have talked already that bodhicitta, which is a part of skillful means of the method, is exclusive practice of Mahayanas, whereas the wisdom gone beyond is a common practice. So if the wisdom realizing emptiness, which is perhaps the most important wisdom of all, is a common practice, then there is no need to talk about how other types of wisdom, such as wisdom realizing impermanence or wisdom realizing different levels of selflessness, how those are also common paths and practices. And so if we would like to follow Mahayana path and become Mahayanis, then we need to develop commitment to cultivate bodhicitta as our path. Instead of doing that, if we get somehow, detour or distracted by, seeking some other kinds of qualities like clairvoyances or miraculous powers or something, they may be very wonderful, but then we are really sacrificing a greater purpose for the sake of small goals. And so we are advised against that. Instead of running after some kind of a miraculous powers or the clairvoyances, we should really stay focused on cultivating bodhicitta.
Shera zo toni do shera gola kete de le melgum na call le toa tam to de yen hine la lakdon de ma jo shene da me ba to ba ni ji ani to gum go na ti ji te ba che mo ke chi ni ke chen ni shang ju sim la jong go ba yin di ji du jabe hibe se le mini yin ji se le mini she so ba tar shera yu koye tar 동안 고라 인지 시에 tar 동안 서 고고베 shera yu 시와 동안 이게 시에도 시베에서 tar 마루아 팅면라양 예베 시에당 전주 거사 정성 남지 가지 좋으니 시에 tar 동안 비셔로스 어디 다다다데 전주쌤도 계시고 싶어서 다 돈도 회시라도 히라 말에 돈도 조지다 색술 해봐 됐어 말아. 그래서 다들 돈도 회시라 고 말해서 고고 말해서 배는 가서 얘기해도 얘는 보지 말라 빠만인가 고 그래. 고야도 그거 그랬어. 얘는 쪼르버도 어디에 독스레스. 제가 쪼인라 뒤에 지금 맞아는 있는 데가 말했어. 어디보다 다 돈도 회시라 다 전주쌤에 돈도 회시라 찍고 보면 저기는 왜 장상 Hila Chengi was top near doing the Tabato to receive. Tadil, this year, Hini Lagdon Kursa, 年那你现在劳动的嘛主要些呢，是的，现在劳动出事的咱的小王长木工的出事啊，咱的俺都没个，但劳动现在个都嘛我用过着，我这个数的得用过着，我现在天天嘛就些，我那上咱们工地啊，这个那台湾的头也是我说，因为台湾全部开是吧？因为天这个现在呢，民间上去什么讲什么的，上去什么嘛什么咱这啥嘛，对吧？西单过过是吧？西单过过，人家就是小工上家我都进来是吧？西边西那边的西边是那现在是吧？这个那西单过过是吧？可是可的当时帮西单过过的，人家西那边的是人家也当。那人家可是人家就为现在地方过去，甚至当这个都的，那上去我们到给把成本什么炒菜的用过是吧？我得用过我的是，我可是个别是，那现在个别特别现在特别是那么的有些，超级是个人做的其他农业比些少，我的地这个的，地些做的其他农业的其他可是啥，年个吃要的多是，可是说，第二他东西多啥子呢？那快把娘的你让后那了，可是东西都把现在的接着是个要么了，可让啥跌下我说，可没娘过就是吃我嘛，他们多呀，你赶紧小我不去，多啥呢？那可娘过个要么了，可真没找着你，可能也没事，看看用要么了吧。但上学生的当不变中多少现在甚至他这个现在看什么甚至就话通的，那我他甚至就话你这那甚至那上的话的，他生大着这个甚至他做生意弄啥么事。小学生当给老弟当过他，我听。
So we're on page 19. So from Mahayana point of view, bodhicitta, in a sense, is much more important than wisdom gone beyond. So we're emphasizing the centrality of developing bodhicitta. To engage in Mahayana path leading to enlightenment. So as we do that, it sounded like wisdom gone beyond is not that important, right? And so we might kind of, how should I say, you pay less attention to that. That is again the issue, because in order to achieve enlightenment, we must follow complete path. So complete path consists of method and wisdom integrated. So the method here specifically refers to bodhicitta, and the wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness. So we have to have both method and wisdom, however important each one of them is to achieve our goal. So we must keep things in perspective. So don't, kind of, have a mentality that, oh, bodhicitta is everything, therefore, so wisdom is okay, kind of thing. So we cannot do that. We need to practice both. And especially if we want to become a Mahayanist, then there is no other way but to cultivate bodhicitta. If we only dedicate ourselves to cultivating wisdom side, and never cultivate bodhicitta, then we can never be a Mahayanist. So it's important to be mindful of that. And also, as Maitreya states in Ornament for Clear Knowledge or Realization, Apisamaya Alankara, in Tibetan, I quote, through knowledge you do not abide in cyclic existence, through compassion you do not abide in peace, unquote. Right? So that's a very important crux of the matter. So by cultivating wisdom gone beyond, wisdom realizing emptiness, we do not fall into the extreme of cyclic existence of samsara. In other words, wisdom gone beyond can liberate us from samsara, isn't it? So we don't get trapped in samsara, we don't fall into this trap. But without compassion and bodhicitta, we may find ourselves, being trapped in the solitary peace of liberation or nirvana. Okay? So that's another trap. So in order to be free from that kind of extremity or trap, we need to cultivate great compassion and bodhicitta. So in order to achieve enlightened state, we have to be free of both traps or the extremities, right? We have to be free from samsara, we have to be free from the solitary peace of samsara, right? But we have to be free from samsara, and we have to be free from the solitary peace of nirvana. And for that, so we must integrate both wisdom and bodhicitta. So as Geshe explained, that by cultivating wisdom gone beyond, what we are really hoping to do is to counteract our grasping at self and uproot it completely, right? So grasping at self is the main obstacle, and the real antidote to uproot that is the wisdom gone beyond. Yeah. So once we have realization of emptiness, it stays with us. It's never going to decline, okay? And we don't have to be worried about that. Once you truly realize emptiness, it never goes away. Okay? But now in terms of cultivating bodhicitta, we have to be very careful. There are many situations where, depending upon where we are, we could easily lose bodhicitta. Yeah? I mean, somebody who has cultivated bodhicitta fresh, right, and has got the real bodhicitta, let's assume that, right? But as he or she encounters some very challenging and difficult situations, and then might get very disheartened and thinking, like, oh my gosh, how could I be really working for these numberless, countless sentient beings? That's just impossible, okay? So I don't see it, And so we might get disheartened, and then that can damage bodhicitta, and we can lose bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is very sensitive in that sense. We have to watch out carefully. And so we cultivate bodhicitta in order to counteract and uproot our self-centeredness or self-cherishing attitude, isn't it? So that is the main obstacle to achieve enlightened state, and bodhicitta is the antidote to uproot self-cherishing attitude.
Then Gyeltsen gomba dewa tsema gyebes Geshe nani rinpoche sem deni yuli jena dinda medu shin lam jezi yam samba zinje si sheba gui yonde chamu yuli jewala tizam di minzin des o tizi was da kanji tena Gyeltsen gomba tsema da kanji gune chasang di sangji gomba shitawa ki dongi jibu tamba tizogi ene peke changju sem sodo dire yakbo chimi tang dire dona ngone chasang yamzen jin en tele yabe jizi yana shin chigiri yes ta shibago yonde chamaza peche dire da kapdol ya nedong pa jin do ya ga chia do ene dene mushi du nangal puriya ndo o tindele ya ene gaboshi worwa sir cha mishin ga ta pen se di ne na za do dong pu ya sen peche se di thong ru go ba ko chul peche ru ma ba se ta se dine ji da tang da shiba de se shiba se ji do shiba se ji ga me gen shiba se worwa ko ji ba tabu thosa de bu ngonde pu chung chung ji ga me mel chung na la ba chung ye cha ma bo ten nyam nye de so shiba se worwa se ta ji ga me je se so da de so le ene ka ta de ene be go do go ma do ji ngone cha sa be lam ne ga how could Sanji Salia, when he does the Slam Kante Gugu me, when he had going to so in Changi sim to the same, when he does the Yanzen Chigamaji, in the day Mushi to do sort of a tendeti, in a Kayansa Bakazi Maris, Majitan Mushi to do the Shiruba tomorrow. Also, number till Jorba,
So towards the bottom of page 19, it is stated that those who have truly realize the significance of Buddha's discourses, the teachings. So they are very much amazed by the value of bodhicitta. So this is real marvel for them. They think this is truly amazing state of mind, and they rejoice in this bodhicitta, and they do everything to promote it. Whereas, childish-like sentient beings, in this case, the child is like, somebody who is a baby born and yet to be taught everything, right? So doesn't even know the difference between hot and cold. So you might easily put your hand into the fire because it doesn't know it's a fire. So it must look, cool. So that's the kind of child's limited experience knowledge. So child-like sentient beings may regard, for example, clairvoyances, or extrasensory perceptions, or the miraculous powers as something amazing and marvelous, right? Whereas for the sublime beings, those who truly understood the important Buddha teaching, they said, no, those are really not important, And as a matter of fact, as we have talked about this often, that clairvoyances and miraculous powers, a lot of them are also common to many religious systems, right? The Buddhist and non-Buddhist, faith.
that there is you know, Junju Leja, Henda, Rang Tondian, Minju Simju Sonsiga, Singing Tamba de Nana Meiji Chong She, there is what Gaji. That's the chances of speaking Karsa. Lam Yanga the Meji with okay. Wrong to the Sanyataya didn't do Marita, Mindu by Imbala, Simji Tamji told to be a Sanjo of Toyadi, she was your boys, Takajeti, the Chabar Berinja Tamba huge race or that. None may be paid that. Shumon, that evil husband of the need is your
So at the bottom of page 19, we have a stanza quoted from Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds, Chunju in Tibetan, so which basically tells us the great value of developing bodhicitta, altruistic spirits. So what is stated here is for many people, they even don't seem to think about, working for enlightenment for their own sake. But whereas those who have cultivated bodhicitta, they're thinking about, enlightenment for the sake of others, isn't it? So that is a really, truly amazing, treasure or a wonder. When many people couldn't think that for themselves, right? Forget about it. But they're here, bodhisattvas who are, actually wishing enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. So that's a truly a marvelous quality and state of mind.
That the Jews take the Gyeltsen color, then they see the color, Sonu then the color, the color send you in color same tabarin, Jeva Charcello, Share Song, but dance, Tire Kaji, that shows you take the Gyeltsen color, you see, no, shows you send it to me at your kind of your Mariskaji, your Nagata, Cheshu of the shows you send the receiver. That Tinde the color is so trouble. That Togo Uniman, that Church same to Togo Yama, he's in the Togo Bija, Kanyan to Togo, country Togo, lot to that of the he's or the Sonu Tenta Kali is, or teacher, Sonuma tell a show Yama is. She had the Tides on the constant what the Jeva Shaz of his Tides on the Church seemed to be Yash Sheta Moris, Sheta Muinza, and Church seemed to get the Kenda Kuyon to carry in the man, Church seemed to you in the hotel, Church seemed to get user to a chart saying,
So on top of page 20, it says, these quotes come from Bodhisattva, engaging in the deeds of Bodhisattva. Is there any virtue equal to this? Meaning, we cannot find any other virtuous quality or practice that is comparable to bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is regarded as the greatest of all virtues. Is there any such friend? We cannot find, any better friend for ourselves than bodhicitta. Is there any such merit? Of all ways of accumulating merit, cultivating bodhicitta is the most effective and most powerful way to create energy or positive energy or merit. So considering all of these things, then in the Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, it states, I bow down to the body of anyone who has generated this sacred jewel of the mind. And so therefore, understanding all this importance of bodhicitta, so even if, individuals who don't seem to have any other qualities, but if they have bodhicitta, right, and they are worthy of our venerations and our respect, right? That's what the author is saying. I bow down to those who have this amazing state of the mind, even if they may not have any other qualities, right?
Well, they Karasa Yangju Junji, but Tamju almost over my Yungushon, she sooner Yungushon, Dambe show to soon be shared. Then the Adisha Ometawan Zinjin. Selling the Simzamba, Simson Nandi Tawan Zimba Yinjang. Choju some content, Nivel, Lamana, Gooding Lamanamji, Gooding Shishu, Zimba, number Taba La. Sooner near Sheva Shigtina, Love near La, so Kujishabu Yodos. What did I say that Junju mutant radar? Tamju almost about the state. That was Shumu Jiris, don't think Ningo to do you know? Not to Martin. Because I was Mamma Susan, Nimbo the Marlin at the what did Nimbo the dinner? Mark or Matt some the man you level line, ene be chebu gide ke do ningbo su de no so ba ene di ningbo ningbo de xiang zhi sen de le xia si wo di mo ene di de song xia si ji de xiao la song do ene di song da jiu jie ba na di xia ge de xiu de ka sa kono ene oma be da wa ten yu da wa ji dan da lama chen lu xue da wa sa de sem za ba nam zu ba re nam de ba re do wa re di ina ene xin ye gang ge nang zu ru de da ge xin ye 그래서 라마 자등가 중앙 섬는 저 말에 여러 저 우지도 송지 센세이션 되려죠. 다 뒤는 조조의 라마 셀링 못 지고 그랬어. 그래서 라마 셀링 못 지야 돼. 가르쳐서는 정주선 라마 셀링 못 살리 비게 지시마디 토토도 텔전 지고 그랬어. 그래서 뒤 비게 주어진天요아래는 셀링 반에는 셈남 줌바리 뎀바리 코니 따야 쇼메르디 히부지 쇼르 요르디 现在呢，主要这个那么森林把它做起啊，有这看来这个我们这上么多呢，你科技项目要的，但科技项目要的么呢，科技少数什么多的，这是我说，我就是我的。
And so on top of page 20, again from engaging in bodhisattva deeds by Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva, we have a quote says, "It is the quintessential butter churned from the milk of the sublime teaching," unquote. So meaning that, so when we mix all kinds of milk and then we ferment it and we churn it out, then the essence of all that milk is the butter, right? So like that, if you look at the 84,000 discourses of Buddha's teaching, and the essence of all that teachings, butter-like essence, is the bodhicitta, and so that's how important cultivating bodhicitta is. And then it continues to say that if you look at the life story of great Atisha and his relationship with one of his teachers called Lama Selingpa, the master from the Golden Island, right? Then we might learn some great lesson. That is to say that Atisha himself, in terms of philosophical viewpoint, is Prasangika Madhyamikan. Okay, so the top level, Buddhist philosophy and philosopher. But his teacher, Selingpa, the master from the Golden Island, he follows the Chittamadhyana school of thought, mind-only school of thought, and within that a sub-school, the name of that sub-school is given there. Satya Karavadin view. So despite these philosophical differences, in terms of philosophy, we can think that Atisha is much higher level than his own teacher, but it is said that Atisha cultivated as many as 153 gurus, teachers. Of all them all, he regarded Lama Selingpa, the master from the Golden Island, as his primary guru or the most important guru. Why? Because the kindness that developed in his heart, bodhicitta, is due to the blessing and instruction of this particular master. So from this we can learn the lesson, the importance of cultivating bodhicitta.
Del beni chema me karsa keju shona ti se be sharol sen jungsi je sheba shazem cheba she shangren zhuo yin te men no dongsu ren bo xie gang de se xin ja changyu se jebe jebe mi su do se xie da changyu sem be za shi mu ye changyu sem de ye na ani ke na da kan sharol ka sen te ji chang bo she na and Changju Yesi Jeva said the level do this. Changju said when I tap a tonzo remote no you can't be a jimba of Tankarshevina, the Yesi Jeva do Maris. But said that today on that in Karsa. And he called came in of that did Changju saying Karsa, Payon Shiva or what? Or said the Payon Shiva, they said that give us all the Givash and the Giva in Jondo de Changju saying Simba in the bush funeral like in the Yesi Jeva. Changju Mazina. Any Jimbashana Chimbo has done the Mindor, was she that tells on the Karasa Chive, Jewer Mutu doors, the Odi Jetta, Chaju Sem Gisinani, Yezi Jewer Nuri, Charola, Chang Sejana, Timazina, Dosum Khan, the Rimashipan Pena, Yezi Jewer do Maris, that the third of Jeshore.
And we're still on page 20, somewhere in the middle, is stated that once we have bodhicitta within ourselves, then even if we were to just give a handful of food to, here is mentioned a crow or a dog or a cat or anybody, that simple behavior act of ours becomes a bodhisattva action or a deed. It becomes a bodhisattva charya, right? Bodhisattva action or a deed. On the other hand, if we lack bodhicitta, we don't have bodhicitta, we could fill in the 3,000 world system, billions world systems with precious jewels and give to somebody. That is amazing, but it does not even become a bodhisattva action or a deed. Yeah? And so that's how important bodhicitta is. If we have bodhicitta, even simplest act that we engage in becomes, very powerful virtue and beneficial action. And that's what Geshe said, with bodhicitta and bodhicitta motivation, even if we offer, one candle or, incense stick, it becomes a bodhisattva action.
There is a taking the children, the Sheriff for Gomba, Salutilla Sober, Mizudo, Sereta, taking the any Tanda de Rai, that children like Carparishin, children, the any Jimbaji carrot, Chindu carrot, Yamslavinata, don't you do the Pento Marva? Continue Ganga be Yamlin be touching by you, cut touch of that, don't you wasn't to the any take it no with Salun till and Jogonata, Gezo, remote of Kasi Gomina, or Ganga.
So without bodhicitta or the spirit of enlightenment, we may engage in perfection practices or paramitas, such as generosity and other kinds of perfections, or we might even engage in the, kind of a tantric meditation. I should say. Trying to activate the subtle drops and the channels and all of those, but nothing will become a bodhisattva action or a deed in the absence of bodhicitta.
Rimbuji Sendi need Mason, you chism in Joal and Bilo Shegang. So I can do Zango and Tamji Ekarsa, Daddy, Saji Bajia Mela. Sendi need she son, Rishile Mengawa, so Davi, in the moon Karsa, no more shady, attending Yevi, Jungsi Zala among the Yesama than that is up. But did it shed that this is what Karsa Pedushina. In Sora not on a mere Geshe, anything Sora Matas, Utu in the sign that that's the Makaring in Konga Togmara, Sora Chia Marva.
No.
That Jack Dimashi, Alisa Mangashi, Sora Yago Tar. In the Konga River, using Buba to Kosara that day, Shana. In Kosara Daza Suna, loves a teddy, Chingena, loves a Kotagi, Chudujinga, Kokamaka Shagara.
No.
Or did not in so doyalia, Sanjiva sauce or Tiju or this sort.
At the bottom of page 20, it stated that bodhicitta, if you have it, even a moment of virtue, becomes extremely powerful virtue, and it really speeds up, our journey towards enlightenment. In the absence of bodhicitta, we may do a lot of other virtues, but still, it is like a slow journey towards our ultimate goal. So the example given to illustrate the point is like the farmers who need to cut grass. Okay? And a farmer, who doesn't pay attention to the blade of the sickle, right? And the blade is blunt, and then try to use all his efforts to cut the grass, he may spend an hour or two, and he's not going to cut much grass. On the other hand, a farmer who sharpens the blade, right, for half an hour or something, and he may be able to cut a lot of grass within like half an hour, and he might get job better done than the other one. So like that, with bodhicitta, our spirituality is enhanced tremendously, and our practice becomes very powerful and speedy practice towards enlightenment.
Oh, this is it. Geshe driva jonga so diva dela du nuinshi. Nunchisa karsa. Yoni karsa nuinshin. Need nuinshin. Ali gyo shunga tam. Palkal zeva namjang jashawa de mesab shawi karsa shive shette. Junju le dikpa de shin de mesab de zobe shonju se member. Geshe da se inom은 Geshe dang tini tude mehi ene dikjen nam geji je ngebar sikbar shi je da simje nam ji inni zam sela nyam samna yang pendo samba tangden de sonum pangmen de jana simje re me dewa pa de me ba sendi jing re yon de pa me du joban de me ji gos tere da tere do geji re ya gaji lam gomjo joba nyan shi ge geji re ya en so sa ba de joba jong le tushe mo ri go re se ro yewa cha de da ko tushe mo ri ge chungwa de so be tushe mo ri ge res tere ju digba to shi me se ba se do digba to shembo tal peti hida sha mo be sami so ji na en changju sem yes ne en se sa to re se ga da ro ba te do changju sem ge se ne me changju sem ma ge na en digba be top share do en shazang sha to ba re se ga ro ba karsa kang se no ma gir he da tin di de me ti di chen na ge ji ge nge ba se ba shi se ba se da changju sem ge na ini today me say the ke ba ji the match ba ne ini ganzu me the me da hibu the match chebo ba yo se ba re for the ba na in the was be stands be ke ji ba se sha ge es ro ti ji ke ji se ba je da se de na ni ne zam se ro se la nyen de sam ne ya pen da so no de ji da sin ji re ti kar se me dewa pa me ba se de jing re yen de pa de joban de me ji go stire da en changju se pyo yi be gize kare se na simje de hen da ge le ne zam se ya don da ya ji de le pen do shi ge o tin de ge ya song de le do le song shen bo song de wa shi da simje tham je be ge ne ga ga se ya dewa ga ga du ya ge ne ti ge changju se je na ni ta de lo song yung go ba ma re ta ko ri be top to ya ra top to ri so da
So on page 21, we have a couple of quotes from Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds, or Chinju in Tibetan. And the first stanza really tells us, how powerful bodhicitta is to purify even the greatest of negativity that we have accumulated. Those of us, who are really interested in Dharma practice. Our Dharma practice consists of two things, right? One is, we need to accumulate a lot of merit and wisdom, and another one is to purify all our, negativities. So, in terms of purifying, even the greatest of negativities, bodhicitta is the most powerful one. There is no other virtue that can do that. Even the negativities such as what we call the heinous crimes or the karmas, like we call it boundless negativities, such as patricide and matricide, right? And these are really hard to purify by any other methods. But bodhicitta is very powerful even to purify such extreme negativities. And the example in the next quote is given is, it is believed that at the end of eon there will be this, very destructive fire which can consume everything instantaneously. So bodhicitta is like that. It's that fire that can instantaneously consume the great negativities that we might have accumulated. And then in the next stanza, it states that in sutras, what we hear is that if we are going to think kindly of others and benefit others even in a limited way, that is very wonderful, right? Virtue. If that's the case, then by cultivating bodhicitta, we are really dedicated for the well-being of all other sentient beings. They are limitless in number. We are not only thinking about their temporary benefits, but we are seeing that we want to become enlightened to bring the greatest benefit to them. So such state of mind, attitude, and the dedication is going to be tremendously meritorious and beneficial. So with bodhicitta, even the smallest of beneficial act, it becomes tremendously beneficial action by its power.
Oh, this is kasha. She dance da junju re do. Gewa she ni shujin shen de gewa shengu shushin shen de ne jibi je ni sever jo ni. Changju sen yong yi da ba yang jibi me si pyo ang ju she so sa. Tere ta kan je kan se gewa shen de ben 세점송나 다 미개지로 생선디 야 나미데 덴르 자와직 팽그로 데 조사로
No.
어다 지마다는 다 가르치는 지바 강가 레레레 나미레레 뭐시 요마로
No.
저주 쌤디 그게 깨는 그게 시대나 얘네 그게 지마도 담배나 다 간지 간다 심지어도 돈 예세 지와 라디디 단데 얘네 데르게야 그게 고모디에 다 예세 라비 코 샬 용는 거지로 와
No.
어디서 다 간지
No.
저 리부타바 리부 미세 표현 줄슬라로 와 어디지 지마도 찍다는데 되게 지마도 베게 저 예세 지와 로징 강가리 베게 리부 세야 메야 봐 어디 도리 중시 딱바냐 중심 시디 때문에도 딱바리 리부 당게지 중심 세는 것도 길라트레서 돼 길라 리부 찍 먹다 말아 찍다 데 감도라 다 카보도 셀로데네 다가다 사나다 그러와 진짜 다디 사나다 다 살아다 시그리세 어디게 자이잖아 어디데 레스 다 거기
So towards the bottom of page 21, there's a stanza quoted from Engaging the Bodhisattva Deeds, which reads, "All other virtues are like the plantain tree. After bearing fruit, they perish. But this spirit of enlightenment, like a wish-granting tree, always bears fruit and never dies, but flourishes." Unquote. So, say, in the absence of bodhicitta, we may do many kinds of virtues or practices, such as we abide by the basic ethics of abandoning 10 negativities of body, speech, and mind. That's very wonderful. But once these, virtues ripen their results, whatever it is, once, then it's done. Okay, then are no more going to bring more positive results. Whereas if we have cultivated bodhicitta, then the virtue that we create with bodhicitta become inexhaustible. It's just like a wish-granting tree that never finishes bringing, fruits. So even, let's say, with bodhicitta, we engage in a particular practice called generosity. The generosity is going to bring this endless, endless benefits. And so the example given here is other virtues are like plantain tree. And Geshe said, plantain tree could be like a banana trees, right? They grow, they bring bananas, and once they produce banana, then that tree is no more going to give bananas. Okay, orange tree is a little different. Maybe at different seasons they will grow up again. But bodhicitta, a tree is like a perennial tree. It never perishes, and it always brings fruits.
Okay, the Karsakizata Numa Shading what the Shonju Payon Kidan, the Payonian Yashiva Shiga Karsana, the young Samadana, Shonju Semlia, Gumdu Jagi, what that Titonal Shiva, she that Payon the so Goma Shiva.
So for this couple of weeks, we have focused on dealing with what we call the benefits of cultivating bodhicitta. Okay? And the purpose behind that is a motivational purpose. By contemplating the benefits of bodhicitta, then hope it inspires us, it encourages us, it uplifts us, to be able to follow the bodhicitta, practice. So it would be nice in our own ways if we could reflect on the benefits of bodhicitta, so that could benefit us to some extent.
Oh, there's that Tesha, that is Jula, this was at the mirror, this Jula, Simji Koran gives the Sasson, Pejita, Nimani, didn't you? Southern Mandrashua.
No, sir.
Simji Sasson, Chevala at the Adishashi, and Southern Mandrashi.
No, sir.
In the that and the Choi.
And so on page 21, you see the sub-point called How to Develop the Spirit of Enlightenment, right? So we paused there. And so just an announcement, next week will be break because your translator will be out of town at a panel in Utah. So you will have a break. And then the following week, we will continue with how to develop the spirit of enlightenment, and that may take 2 weeks to finish. And after that, we'll pause this, and then we'll go back to the Vipassana section, right, pick it up there. And so before we go into the Bodhisattva actions. Okay, so that's our plan for the future. And with that, Geshe would like to yield to you for questions, observations, and... Yeah. Go ahead.
Since nobody had a question, can I ask something related to emptiness? Okay, so I was reading the chanting the names of Manjushri,
Okay.
and it says, if I can find it. Oh, right here. It's in stanza 7 of the 16 verses on request of instructions. For my sake, my benefit, O Overlord, through compassion towards me, may I be an obtainer of the realization process of illusion's net. And I was wondering if what the illusion's net was.
Could you pass that sheet to me in turn one, because I don't have the text, so I don't know which one. Thank you. So you said verse number?
It's in the beginning. It's verse 7.
Oh, verse 7. Oh, for the sake, okay. For my sake, my benefit, O Overlord, through compassion towards me, may I be an obtainer of the realization process of illusion's net, right? So you're
Yes.
asking what is illusion's net?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Quran da tongni kwala kan di shu shaw je sa rwa gen ta sha gyu rwa gen. Quran gi di jambe chenju lo den sa rwa gen. Ta jambe chenju gi di chingna li ya da gen di ri sha karo so gore sikje ra budi ta nge tonda ru shu rwa gen. Tak da du ma rwa den ane ka sa ta rang gi ten ta sa rwa pen do ge che do ane gombo khang gi sa rwa gen. ane ngal ya tukji sine ningji sine ane dit labsha gen ta gyulu gi chawa rwa ane to be nöd dubro nas gyulu gi chawa se rwa sa ta gyulu gi chawa se de kar la ko re so
juju chawa se de rwa juju
chawa se rwa no
juju chawa se de de pije de so da gyulu le se or da
so
no de gyulu da o se gyulu se sungji se jo bare de se or
no so ta di nga na lu ko sa sin de rwa
jabe che nga rwa
no Geshe says that illusions net, it really, because this Manjushri Namasamgiti, or the chanting names of Manjushra, is a lot of do with the tantric practice. So that illusions net really refers to illusory body that we talk about in highest yoga tantra, where we talk about the clear light, meaning clear light and illusory body. So it refers to that. May I be able to realize the illusory body.
nga onre re chidu da di dama re shugo do so da gyulu di so da pe gyulu domno yongsa re samdi da tin zamlen lama de gyulu dama shugo
so in the tantric practice, of course, we need tantric empowerment or initiation, abhishek, to be able to practice tantra. So in the tantric, there are different levels of practice, and one of the ways to do that is, so if one feels like, okay, I'm at sort of a level of the illusory body practice, then you make a special request to the guru to give you that instruction, and then what comes with that instruction is your commitment to accomplish the illusory body, right? So that's how it works. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
About great compassion, I want a clarification about that. It was said that the Mahayanis have great compassion, but and the way it was explained is that what determines whether it is the great compassion or not is the object. In this case, measure all sentient beings, limitless sentient beings.
Right.
But this is definitely something that Hinayanis cultivate. They cultivate compassion for all sentient beings, not with some sentient beings, which by that definition, Hinayanis are Mahayanis too. So if the object of compassion is what determines whether it's great compassion or not, that means Hinayanis also have it, because they cultivate exactly the same object of compassion to all. They want all. They have compassion, right, for immeasurable to all sentient beings. So what makes them Hinayanis then? What exactly is the object of great compassion?
Okay, sure.
Or rather, what determines? Not is it the object or something
sure,
in the nature of compassion?
Yeah, I understood that. Yeah. That under the Lunga Nalia, Kentabena, 다 닝지 곰사데 다 닝지 첨부스고 로와게
말을
지도 가르쳐다 닝지 첨부세디 칸데젤이야 다 고알랭 고레스 믹바다 나바카르 로와게
말을
베나 가르쳐다 단다 데 슝을 제나 닝지 세메서 차르셔다 가서다 셈제 장 세메바로 장메바라 로와게
말을
베나 닝지 세메 라바덴베 인바이나 다 미게 가서다 니라라 로와게 이게 어와스 제자 닝지 첨부세디 아니 닝지 유경원에 시다지 요래 고 컨레지 닝지 첨부스는 지체도 거르서 올게
다 닝제 첨부스 조조를 페이지를 대셔 버다 그런 게 가르쳐 버다 사회 산을 펴거다
나서
닝제 세면서 해야 돼 내가 니라기를 용해 되라
나래
제가 때 니라기를 sem제 탑지 뭐 닝제가 능은 제도 가야지 신의 능은 배야 그게 나 근데 sem제 능은 제가 쉬고도 삼니 되게 학습도 샘든 전토요 말아
나래
그 능은 신이 그다
나래
마소요 대해야 되라
나서
또 학습 전통 게 엔 닝제 딕베 코드 소소 닝제 딕게네 다 능이디 돼야 소소 코드 소소 랭고도서 학습 전통 게 그러고 되지라 다 그저 쿨게 닝제 쓰기도
나서
근데 고모 이제나 닝제 시험보 이런 줄 닝제 시험보 요리 쿨게 닝제 요 말이세 되지기도
알아
근데 페이지는 닝제 시험보다 쿨게 닝제 직바셔 봐 이런 닝제 뭐 메시고라
나래
되지래 지금 제 능만 없으면 다 되지 학습 대통이 되지 근데 어때서 그래 맨다 가서 빼야 되지 말해 에다 그 미쳐버리지만 나는 배 히고 제는 그 아까마도 다 가서 대화를 하면 다 가서 배워서 시나
나오
아니 그때 야 자야 탑지로서 링 말와
나오
다 소소 빈자도 시나 람사 그때 나가 자야 그 주고 말해
나오
어디서 왔다
단다게 닝지 세메세디 세메바디 semje tadal mi gyor
담달도 미고 미야
bebege
미고
ale no sta mi gyor konne chikbar chade gor chana
직바도 샤도 다다 니는 가르라 공증도 정하면 돼 어디 뒤샤도가 뒤샤래 가르사 애들 다 파마지 버두버 야고 히부지 부야고 히부지여니 애네 니마지 버드베 답게 가르사 초바로 들었는 사 메장아진 사 데데 애들 마다 니인지티가 강가 연구하래 용은 애네 고조베 뭐니 뭐지 미게 초배나 초도가 왔어 인 강서서 디데 파들레레스 인 되게 비게 장도다 소 주범을 랑서 인마 손이 니 부야 동거 저 디레시 거다 굴게서 디레시 거
알아 너 가발 좀 되게
라 피디 공수이 뭐
너서
가듬게 디 촉디서 가듬게 지디서 버제 디란도
너서
너랑 야 레지
너서 알아 너서 알아게 게 남지 게 닝지 세메 등에 semje tadal mi gyor samta ala thamal mi gyor
상관미고 미야 니 문제가 되시고 말이 디시나
아니 semje tamje 동안에 제베 닝지로 차로 걸어다 닝지 세메 데
저다 다들 생이셔서 그때 데 자연시바도 이런 닝지 전부 열라고 시다 신제서 미분이 예스 그게 닝지 메서 다 간데 이제 배자 그게서는 이쇼 직바샤 이런 이쇼 메서도
알 자연시바 고마로 와게
라 예스는 고마다
고마로서 yeah that's interesting thank you for asking that I was so what really makes great compassion be will right I said is it from the focal point of view is from subjective point of view what is it because some of the terms we hear in the Buddhist literature is that immeasurable compassion okay? In Tibetan called Nyingje Seme so as Geshe, does immeasurable compassion means that is focused on all sentient beings, immeasurable in the sense, a large number of sentient beings, right? He said actually all sentient beings. So I said, that seems like a great compassion, He said, no, that's why like discussions there in different texts. So great compassion, comes with this sense of responsibility, personal, that I want to do something to alleviate, right? If you don't have that willpower or the responsibility, it does not become great compassion. And so therefore, all these examples, Geshe was giving is, let's say, in our ordinary experience, right? If you see a street person or a very sick person, right? We might feel some compassion, like, oh my, how nice if they are not that. But we may not feel connected to that person, so we might not do anything, right? Feel the responsibility. Whereas if one of our dearest friends or the family members, right, is on the street or becomes sick, not only we feel compassion, but it comes with responsibility. Oh, I have to do something. That's my brother or sister or whatever, right? So the great compassion comes with that sense of responsibility, willpower. In some texts, it's mentioned that, of a very dearest son, who falls into a well, right? Then all the relatives, many family members come and they cry and they, this beating their heads on like, oh my God, what's this? But the loving mother or father might jump into, right, and then, save the child's life. So that's more like great compassion. So as Geshe was saying, in some monastic texts like the Gomang College of the Devung text, so they differentiate, they use different language about Nyingje Chenpo, great compassion, and then Kurjeji Nyingje, responsible compassion, sort of, So they said that even Shervakas could have great compassion, but not the responsible endowed one, right? Whereas in other texts, they say, no, great compassion by its definition means that one comes with responsibility, right? So all these different, interpretations come up with. Okay, so his understanding is the great compassion should come with that responsibility. Yeah.
Okay, it said, if you generate this spirit in an uncontrived manner after making much effort, you will be imbued with the spirit of enlightenment. And then it goes on to say, like, if you give with the whole 3 billion universe offering.
Yes.
Is that Tantra? Is that Tantra?
No.
That's not a Tantric practice?
It's Sutra, yeah.
It's not, it's just...
Yeah.
Like when you offer, like, bread to a crow, and then that crow eats that, and then you accumulate, like, that's a bodhisattva deed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same as, like, when you pour water on Buddha's head, and it, like, clears the Buddha mind or something?
Oh, now you are mixing it with something else.
So that's not tantric?
No, it's not tantric practice, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between bodhicitta, like in the bodhisattva practice, and like doing tantric deeds? Because at some point do they mix? And
okay.
how can I practice the bodhisattva without
tantric practice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Kwanata di inside again. That di shun chunju shun nali that di song rawagan. That chanju sem the choma mayin be chiya be ina rawagan. Ane kasorata sem je poro se kha chi chimbe ina and chanju sem be choba cha res. Di me be ina tongsum ne grum be kan di chago mala rawagan. Kora samba tang di ka nga gi nyam len de se be sa di da mare la yin ba gen. Chidio kan la ya da tang da chanju sem gi nyam len che da jo rawagan. Di da ane nga nyam len che jo rawagan. Di khande se ba ro jo rawagan. Nga nyam len ma je ne ane chanju sem nyam len che ro sigu rawagan. Di sigu la. Da chanju sem da ya da chanju sem di nga la khu ko res la rawagan. Nga nyam len che chanju sem ko la rawagan. Da ko chu yin ko sa rawagan. Mes nges ma la.
네. 그래서 나년에 저기서 거야 그래서는 나년에 시대 다 되고라 가지 상시에 고모 타고 그야 그지. 나시도 상시에 고모 타야 뭐도 타가 타야 되는 거 아시 개면도
나래.
상시에 고모 타고 시신도 저기서 만들어서야 봐라. 어디 살아서.
나 이내다 전주심 냠래 잡을 nga 냠래 치고고요 말이죠. 봐. Yeah. So what Geshe wants to say is that when we think in terms of Mahayana Buddhism or Mahayana vehicle, the goal of the Mahayanists is to become Buddhas and enlightened beings. Okay? And then there are two aspects of the path. One is we call the discourse aspect or the perfection path. And so that involves cultivating bodhicitta without necessarily having to practice the Tantra. Okay? But in the Tantric practice, should one decide to follow Tantra, then bodhicitta is a must, without which one cannot practice Tantra. So Tantric practice involves visualizations of the deities and other sets of meditations. There is no such thing as a Tantric practice to achieve a nirvana from samsara, right? Tantric practice is meant for complete enlightened state, not to achieve just freedom from samsara, Yeah.
So, is there any literature that he suggests I could read to have an understanding of bodhicitta and like how to develop that,
Okay.
or should I just?
네. 전주 쌤디 가르쳐오래 고알이야다 지 대브라고 저와게 로지 냠렌체나 경기 대브라고인데 가르 야가 위나 빼자라고 저와 롭잖아요. 나서 그렇게 전주 쌤다 냠ren고.
전주쌤 다 제가 지금 소소 냠스 레서는 다 흉주도 다 냠스 레대야도 다 라우링 될 샤고로와.
나래.
다야 전주쌤 거라 지고 제 노야 되서 롭종스야지 다 다시냐고 치야도
나래.
전하죠. 근데 뭐 이따 라우링 잡셔도 되다.
나래. So in a generic sense, we feel the guide to even develop bodhicitta is the Lamrim practice, you know. But then if you want to just kind of focus on developing bodhicitta, then there is something called mind training or the lojong, thought transformation practice, right? Where different techniques are used, like seeing both self and others as being equal, and then exchanging self for the others. So that's more sort of specific practice focused on cultivating bodhicitta. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Between entering looking at the Tantra bestowing the initiation of Vajrapani, it says that one should not even enter the mandala. But is there a difference between entering the tantric path and entering the mandala?
Okay.
Because obviously in reality,
Right.
many people enter the mandala without, in my opinion, having entered the tantric path.
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Tagidi karsa chana do ji gyun sungpa na sin chene ke karsa ora nga la ya juk nga ge lam la juk pa da ra ba ke kinggo de juk ni ke ba yo ba so ra. Kona sin kinggo de juk de nga ge lam la mo jun kinggo de ting sa ju yung de wa ke.
nga le shugwa da dire do nga le shugwa nga le shugwa de dire ka ga yin je do ra nga shu na pe je changshi sim je go ya sa ji shao da
Na le.
da nga shu na pe je yang
Kinggo le shu ba se di.
经过学的nga shu ji ba da经过学是的nga de yi me经过ang shu go ro经过就是dire
Na le. Ta ko di te de ma de ge
da
nam
ya de se ge da ka sa dire 经过学过咱们些呢，要么是我下
wang ma na ji wa ke.
哦，嘛就些呢，学过咱们些的到，的这当没些就是没，我说他有时候经过就按是的引进没经过就能学过是吧？
Na le.
的培训这倒是呢，经过就把它按学的几把这些个的。
Na le. Ina ta kinggo le shu no wang ma shung ge de le chen ji sim ko wa ke.
经过了现在按嘛有的是过去嘛的。
Ta ko na ti teng ma nga nam ji wang nan ju ka le ya kinggo na lu shu go ba ke. Chen sim yan me na. Cha za shu ya di le la che ta king da nga ge lam le shu go le chen ji sim ma ma shi yo ma so go ke. Di ke ba ching ma so no.
他听了几道的有那种学问，那种，这倒是相同领域没练过是吧？
La le.
但相同练法呢，人家已经没么什么人，相同什么人见过这事情就完了，看这是吧？
No so.
但接着么些个这说的话，可是，但是相同相同嘛的，这是谁去呀？相同人别那个李家康这是个人谁呢？么什么点吧当，也是接完了，人他们老板对吧？我是。 是吧？对，给人呢，这让军呢钱要嘛的，
No so.
没什么点吧些，因为也是接完人他们老的是的，没什么点是的，就是解散呢，
No so.
娘们这边点不来啥个是个啥？
La le.
我这个是个啥？
No so.
这当俺这当时吃些的平时，就是这么自己的这个这样做是，这习惯什么的，
La
我
le.
这这我就说平时忙吃，这他老是什么呢？相同当的这种相同啦呢。 因城市什么中国是还是多啊？
No.
那这里这个看去年那看在城市什么的叫我们是啊，什么在城市多巴朗的城市什么中国是啊，那么什么都有是吧？
La le.
对，但多巴朗的城市什么中是啊的，中央的马家不接为是中巴的，这些活的不中国应用是吧？中是啊，咱们的马家不接为是中是啊，罗马是吧？
La le.
对，空着必须的，他天天的做不着。
No
这
so.
么多，但俺当时这送的那个必须城市是接过啥我都，就是没啥必须没得。
No. Ta nga nam ji che ma se de nga la so da chak se ru cha de
哦，
ro.
这这些都假的。
Geshe having a lot of fun over this, what is stated strictly in the text and what we see practiced right today. And so he said, to the extent he know, based upon some of the works of Lama Tsongkhapa Rinpoche, strictly speaking, one must have bodhicitta, of course, to enter the path of Tantra and also to enter mandala. The reason is that usually you enter the mandala only for one reason, to be able to receive the initiations of a deity, whatever, right? And for that, one must have a bodhicitta. And so in order to engage in tantric practice and mandala, we have to take bodhisattva vows, isn't it? So bodhisattva vows are based on the premise that you have generated bodhicitta, at least the aspiring mind, which is real bodhicitta, so without which you don't receive it, right? So strictly speaking, that's how it should be. Now, in terms of practice today, as we give initiations, many lamas, they say that, well, even if we don't have the one, just at least we should contrive it, be faithful and see as if we have it, and then we are allowed to enter into mandala, right? So that's the dichotomy. So referring to Gyeltsen Rinpoche's work, Geshe said, where he said that in order to take bodhisattva vows, one must have a stable, aspiring mind, bodhicitta. Not just aspiring, but a spiritual one. And one must have really this willingness to engage in bodhisattva deeds. So if you have that, regardless of you are monastics or you are lay person or married or single, doesn't matter, right? If you have those qualities, then you qualify to receive bodhisattva vows.
So in reality, if we don't have bodhicitta, then we can enter the mandala, and we're still not on the tantric path. So there's a difference there.
So this is the kind of that things on the German Sunday in Kiev to draw the work in your nature. This is the kind of that German Sunday, she didn't say, and as a king or a jugo or the in that. Ngalam la shu yo mar slabu sigro was ngazo ngwe slowa ke
je ta ngal shu bol cheu se mugos la na da ngal shu go mar se ra ngal shu bu se ra
na de
ta ngal shu ne be
ngal shu bol ngalam shu mar sta yo choro yeah. So then that's right, we have to differentiate. Yes, based upon contrived bodhicitta, we get permission to enter the mandala and receive initiations. But technically speaking, we have not entered the tantric path. Yes, we have entered tantric practice, but not the path. So now we have to differentiate, right? Find distinctions there. Yeah, Jim.
Hi. I recently read a little bit about the origins of Buddhism and also the religions of India at the time of Buddha or just before. And so there's a little bit of debate about that, but I'm wondering, there's supposedly something called the Shramana movement, which was like more austerity yoga kind of practices that was kind of in opposition to the Vedic and Brahmanic religions at the time. And there's some scholars seem to think that it's possible that the rough ideas or concepts of reincarnation, samsara, karma, moksha might have already existed in that culture before Buddha's time. So I'm wondering whether Tibetan Buddhism would agree with that premise, that those rough ideas already existed, and Buddha, then, so the question would be, what was Buddha's contribution in working with those ideas?
Okay. So rough ideas of samsara, karma, moksha.
Samsara.
Okay. Yeah. Quran disagree that and the Nangbe Chu Tongma Jungung in the developed again. The Nangbe Chu Jungung or what? Jungu kept in the engine of Yerolog again. Cable on that didn't have some to Kadu but a condition was good in Gusarwa. Did a Hava do Nangbe Chung and Liata, Hindu Chu Yorwagan. Seducal dinner did they say you do so that also rap and a Corbasage or wagon. Takana sing Tarbase, Moksha wagon. Takana she less again the Kanga. Sanjam Haben when it digi Karsore. Geshe the Yores, children, says that Pebe Nangbegi did Taka killing the best, Sanjam having when they did the Yorwa, Takas. You have a Yina, and Sanjay Chumden the Pendelia, Mixesh, Dakasor, Shendep the Master Rocket. Sanjay Chumden the Dakache or when you're in the score.
Lay they do ganga new lay
or the this is the concept that the Kawanga just said to the Yores or what?
The citizens the Shiro, that young way up in the lady killing Kaji Taranong, Tavam, the killing or read the Sanjay to the Karikas, that did it. Couldn't lay that the year tower of Kariku long as Haku, Takaji. Not the Sanjay to with that lay doing ganga, you have tower of the Mari was said,
no, sir.
That thing was my those here the Sanja Tavata chat or that Kotaka Kayi said doing the only she said, then I share the cell, do you she said, what Siramo do call doing it to get the Kane Yungu, they get see show Mara.
No, sir.
Lay Kajanko, they do the killing where.
다 개왕하지다 레디도다 안 타로서를 되죠 다 계절하고도 여러 방이에요. 단 산재 팬이 다 써야지.
That they are kill in the other the women they were there, Takara Tango on the Yodo, so you have on the Euro. He said, that was it, the white get the go was the way kind of young say much you say. In the water that like good the question took it that long to collogian to the Euro. The subject did that long to Tata Coloma did that. Then fire the power.
No, so 다 이제 규사 말이 붙은 텐데시에 selection 되고 봐. Yes, Geshe said we do agree that before Buddha's advent in India, those concepts already exist. The sense of samsara and the karma and the moksha, and so there was already belief that we don't want any kind of suffering, but want happiness, and something's related to your karma, right? So all that understanding there. And but one of the things, of course, among many things Buddha, contributed is at that point, many of the philosophies that exist, they really did not explain deep enough where do this karma come from, right? So Buddha came and said, the way we create karma is because of our ignorance grasping at self. Yeah, so that is the root. So from which other delusions are coming up, and then we are creating all sorts of karma. So in order to uproot that, then Buddha propounded the principle and theory of dependent arising, right, as a way to do that. Right, yeah, that's uniqueness, right. 다 간제 당지 말에 봐 코베 자와다 레 중공 이바다 안디 갈속을 당지 말에 봐 매바 중앙에 텐데 또 거다 산제 그 투모마 차대로. Yes.
예, 고소 관계 내가 코아 디 시버보 레주 코아 지 다이 군조 이시시르세야 저 엄주시르서 드레머들 코아 수 레사니 이니 내도 두여도 군조 하고 공도 내도도 하고 그러와 디군 중사하고 말아.
And a lot of the times, even those philosophies, they talk about karma. Again, the much of karma is attributed. Finally, it goes to the Creator God, right? And it's his doing of good and bad. And then you just, it seems like there is no personal karma you're creating. It's so what God wanted you to do, right? So your good and bad karmas are designed by the Creator. And so that was that understanding of karma at the time. Yeah. 가서다 렌데 차샤하면 소소 담가 매버죠. 군조 가르쳐야 다 그러고. Yes. No. Any other thoughts? Yeah. Can you use the mic? Yeah.
Would decline. At which point bodhicitta will never decline in one's spiritual development?
다기 겐디칸랑으로와 동인도에 셋업 세견디 직 아니 기에사와 있는 냐매요 말레스 전주 샘디 냐매 규망고요레스 저러와 다 전주 샘디 아니 람 내림 가와슬레면 사나 많이 아버지 차투고레스 올다
물론 뭐 됐어다 페이지 소름 되는 셋다 심기로 소름 되는 냐매요 말레
셋다 무슨 배경
라 셋다 심기
알아 셋다 무슨 also so it is said that how the path of accumulation has the intermediate level, and so once you have, it's called the gold-like bodhicitta. So then you will never experience decline in your bodhicitta. So it is the intermediate level of the path of accumulation, right? It becomes stable. Yeah. No.
Also, it was said that it's the way it's explained. In order to, we need bodhicitta in order to purify, negativities. Mm-hmm. But don't we need to purify negativities in order to have a bodhicitta? So it has a kind of a catch-22 type quality. How do you say catch-22 in Tibetan?
Sure, yes, yeah, I got it. Yes. Quran this is that I get there. 전주섬 기pen 아주 시도가 전주섬도 연아 아니 네가 sabchang 시부대 장투 그랬어 봐. 펜시고로 와. 저번에 전주섬 깨알 네가 장고가 말을 하게. 그래서 전주섬 깨알 네가 장고가 말은 전주섬에는 네가 장고 시도가 깨지도 그거를 잡으러 하게. 저도 간에 있나서 그렇게.
그래서 전주섬 맞아 그 네가 장고 시고로.
그래. 전주섬 깨지 네가 장고로 와서 그래. 지도가라 아니 가서 그래. 전주섬 맞은 걸 네가 장고고 연아 전주섬도 깨네 네가 장고 시도가 깨지 들어가게. 버리게 된 걸로 쳐보러 오게.
대대다 대대시고래. 기타도 저리쌤게 네가 장거리 기와 같이 네가 장거라 저리쌤 제야도 달라 네가 장거라 와 신의 네가 장야는 또 최초의 저리쌤이래서
So in general, right, in order to cultivate bodhicitta, we have to purify negativities. And there are other ways to purify negativities, right? Other virtues do, good job as well. But if we want to, a most powerful way to purify both the negativities, even the greatest kind, then we need to develop bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is among the most powerful, right, methods to purify. We are not saying that you have to have bodhicitta to purify negativities, right? Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay, so once again, I'm reminding that next Sunday, so you have a break, and I'm sure TDL will inform you through group list, and then we will continue with how to train the mind for a couple of weeks, and then we will go back to Vipassana section after that. Anyway, we'll keep you informed of that. Kange lo de timye dinda ninda namda rabseve chinye dungwe chishe seche nije toga legbam ze kanda sebe zunra myndon dungye yeseve dozo kunla buje daze yela zhuju yangden son zhuda cheto nyemo leje chakro zhuze je mariye myuse dungye nyugo chinye chunze raje Dönen daje saju daze yönden lunzo gyase dövü Chura chura chuni yende dalu yangla dö Omara bazana Omara bazana zende köye kera böze yen dalu temo memba rapsene kada tenje shunglo top lode babe na sedo zo lode gyazu ögo bega de sezan konve chudo memba tenba zenla wando yejo be chanye shugun chala so wan de page 21 Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon tender-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions, free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri, O Marabaza Nadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Page 31. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lobsang Tenzin Wangda, respectfully I pray. In Vietnamese.
Tựa phù mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử, tiếng rồng vang Ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp chướng, gươm trí tuệ Ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt vuông vàng khổ đau cùng ách nạn, trưởng tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báo thân Ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin Ngài tận diệt phạm chướng vô minh. Omara Pasanadi, con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, ban phước liệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa nhiệm màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàng phận giải, như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đảng xanh nơi trí thù thắng đại dương, hàng chuyện căn ông mặt phò nương, hồng danh Ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lớp Xăng, Thanh Xin Quang Đắc, cung kính trì niệm.
Chanju senjo rinpo che ma ye ba na ye yo che ye wa nyam ba me ba yang gong ne gong ye wa yo tong ye da wa rinpo che ma ye ba na ye yo che ye wa nyam ba me ba yang gong ne gong dong be wa yo sa ji be je jo je me do zha ri ra lin je nin de yin ba de sang je yin do mi de wi wa ye an ru xue wa yu kan ri ra we gu we xin gang de an pen dang de wa ma lu jung we ne xie re zi wang din jin jiang zuo ye xia wei si dian ba du dian ju ye ye dang gu